everybody, I want to welcome you to another edition of The Social Success Factor, where we interview some of the best and brightest salespeople in North America and the world to find out what they're doing with social media to supercharge their success. And today I'm pleased to bring to you John Livett. Hey John, how are you?
Hey, Emma, doing fine, thank you very much.
Excellent, we're glad you're here.
Oh, pleased to be here.
Awesome. Well, John, we'll just jump right in. Tell the audience a bit about yourself and your professional journey up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in high-tech sales for going on 15 years. Got my bootcamp training selling copiers for Xerox in London. Moved to Silicon Valley. I worked for a few high-tech companies along the way. And right now I'm the sales manager for Signified, selling online fraud prevention services.
Cool. So you're working for a startup.
Correct.
And are you the only salesperson there?
Kind of, sort of. I'm the only traditional salesperson. I have a sales dev guy, and our CEO chips in every so often, but my number is the company's number.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically the buck stops with you.
Exactly, the buck stops with me.
Fantastic. So, John, before we start, why don't you tell the audience, and this is a question I ask everybody,
Okay.
Tell us what social selling means to you. What is social selling to John Livett?
That's a very good question. A lot of people think social selling means just going on LinkedIn, finding a contact and saying, oh, you know, you're into this, I'm into this, there's a connection, or you worked here, I worked there. For me, it's a bit more in depth. Social selling is more about building relationships. And so rather than the traditional cold calling and trying to find a common ground, it's using your own network to your advantage. And so, you know, getting an intro through a referral as opposed to banging down the doors.
Gotcha. So speaking of banging down the doors, how are you, because being in a startup, I'm sure you have a lot of pressure, right? Especially if the company's number is your number and vice versa. What ways are you prospecting currently? How are you bringing opportunities to the table?
Sure. So I do use LinkedIn fairly extensively. I'm also a big fan of Inside View. I love Inside View because it gives you trigger events, which is a great reason to call. So you're not just another guy saying, hi, I'm calling from XYZ and playing the numbers game. You're actually bringing them something like, I saw in the news this morning that, you know, you guys just landed a big client. Or I saw in the news, like it's a great reason to stand out from the crowd. So big fan of Inside View. What I'm also doing is, aside from cold calling, I use a lot of referrals through my network, but it all revolves around how strong your relationship is with the person in your network.
Gotcha. So basically you're using LinkedIn quite extensively. You're using trigger events, which is fantastic. It's a great way to kind of have a warm conversation with a person around a context, an event, or what have you. How are you finding using social over the last, say, 12 months? Are you having a greater, is social contributing more to your pipeline today than it was in the past? Are you able to get more meetings now using social versus cold calling?
Yeah, very much so. I would say without exact numbers, at least 50% of my pipeline is due to social selling.
Wow.
When you work for a startup on a shoestring marketing budget, I mean, you don't get that many inbound leads. And when you pick up the phone and say, I'm calling from ABC software company, rather than saying, oh, yeah, I know what you guys do, they say, so who are you? Is this a sales call? So you need to be a bit more creative. And that's why social selling works for me.
So if that's great, by the way, that 50% of your pipe is coming from social media channels. How often are you using social media in your daily routine? So if you had 4 hours a day to prospect, hypothetically, what percentage of your time is going towards social media prospecting or social selling?
I would break down the social part into reading the status updates, along with outside of LinkedIn, reading the news in Inside View. I get their daily email alerts, along with actually reaching out. So I probably spend more time than I should reading the daily status updates. I find it very fascinating, but it can suck up a lot of your time. Does it result in sales? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm just curious what's going on in the world with my network. Um, Outside of that, actually reaching out, as long as I can find a decent trigger event and make a reach out, it's time well spent.
Awesome. So social media is definitely helping you, no doubt about
Oh,
that.
very much.
Now, John, you had a really interesting story, and it's kind of the reason that you and I are chatting together right now. And you told me some pretty incredible numbers. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Signify that's really unique, because, in your own words, you're on a shoestring marketing budget. So what are some of the creative ways that you're able to get leads and opportunities in the door?
Sure. So I sell online fraud prevention services, and so if I just in my discovery call, if I just ask questions about fraud, the conversation would be just about fraud. But online fraud is a small amount of a bigger picture. So in a discovery call, I take a few steps back and I say, well, what are you doing for fulfillment? What do all the different areas related to what we do. And so what I've done to try and generate additional leads is there are other companies that hitch to the same companies that I do, probably speak to the same contacts that I do, but they're talking about ERP or fulfillment or a bunch of other things. So why not partner together? I mean, I get inbound leads, they get inbound leads, I have customers, they have customers. So if I have a broader conversation and I say, well, tell me about your challenges with ERP. I don't necessarily sell ERP, but if I can get a bite, I can say, oh, I've got this, this trusted partner that would be able to help you, and then I flip the lead over. And so that's basically what I've been doing. It's a way to leverage, I guess, mutual referrals. So rather than everyone pounding the phones, banging down the doors, you get that warm intro from someone who just spoke to your ideal prospect 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's a great way, definitely. Now, what are some of the numbers around that? I know you were searching on LinkedIn and you were out there basically inviting people to have a conversation with you, and you had some pretty incredible stats. So please share that with the audience if you can.
Absolutely. So there's an e-commerce platform called Magento, and we're on Magento, and there are about, I'd say about 120 Magento partners. So what I've been doing is I've been reaching out to, actually for each company that's a Magento partner, I go on LinkedIn and I find the person who's the most active on LinkedIn and I reach out to them. So again, my goal is to say, I'm not trying to sell you anything, I'm not trying to buy anything from you. I just think that we could use our time more wisely. I started the program 3 weeks ago. Currently I have, actually the first 2 weeks, I booked 15 meetings.
Wow.
Of those 15, I've had 5. I've got the other 10 the first week in January. The response has been overwhelming. It's so easy to get caught up in your insular, this is what I do and this is the conversation I'm going to have and I'm going to look for pain points. But all you need to do is take a couple of steps back and see, well, look, it's so much bigger than what you're just talking about. And how can I leverage my network and how can they leverage me?
Yeah, so basically you're finding a very creative way, you're thinking outside the box and finding an opportunity to connect with people, and finding the right context to connect with them as well. I mean, in this case, in your very specific example, it's the fact that you guys are all Magento partners, but essentially, what's the message or the advice that you can give salespeople on how they could probably apply this in their daily routines as well?
Sure. There are a lot of companies out there that might not necessarily view as competitors, but you're in the same space, you're not direct competitors. So leverage those people, leverage their networks, their relationships. And when you reach out, don't be self-serving. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned in the last year and on using LinkedIn is don't be the guy that says, you know this guy, please introduce me. Be the guy who says, how can I help you?
So basically take off the sales hat, help first,
Right.
and in that helping process, opportunities will present themselves as time goes on?
Oh, for sure. There's a group on LinkedIn called Inbound Networking. It's amazing. I strongly recommend everyone join Inbound Networking. They do webinars once a week. It's phenomenal.
And that's where you're able to make a lot of your business professional contacts.
I make a lot of contacts on LinkedIn, but that particular group, they open my eyes to the fact that networking isn't just about what you can get from other people. It's about what you can do for other people, and you'd be surprised what comes back to you.
So, John, essentially, kind of just to sum up what you're saying, you're able to use LinkedIn to research, find the exact people you want to speak with, figure out a trigger event or some kind of context in which to speak with them, and then use that opportunity to have a conversation. And
Pretty much.
yeah, and it's much more effective than cold calling in your estimation.
It is. You know, I could never get away from cold calling. I mean, Xerox trains you pretty damn well on how to bang down doors. So I'll always be cold calling as long as there's a telephone, but there are other ways that are as effective, if not more. So I'm open to so many different ways. I mean, as long as you get the appointment, as long as you get progress, it doesn't really matter how you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not saying cold calling only, and you're not saying social selling only. You found a nice happy medium that works for you.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. So, as a parting message, John, what are some bits of motivation or inspiration that you could leave salespeople that are still on the fence or really not interested in social selling? What would you say to them?
Use your network.
Use your network.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a general off-the-cuff statement, but just because you've got 2,000 connections doesn't mean they know you, doesn't mean that they'll be able to help you. So if you can develop the relationships with people you're connected with and say, now we're connected, how can I help you? What are you looking for? They'll come back to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, John. Now, I really wasn't planning on mentioning this, but you raised a really good point. Tell everybody about the email you wrote your entire LinkedIn network, the bacon email.
Yeah. So I send one message a year. In fact, how I got the idea was in a previous company, I pitched to an online dating site, and I was selling them on how to get more members. And they said, well, it would be nice to get more members, but our goal is to keep the members we have and get them further engaged. And I thought, well, if you're looking to engage your members, I have however many connections on LinkedIn. Some people I used to work with, some people I sold to, some people I pitched to, and they kind of connected with me, but gave it a husband. And so every one of my connections on LinkedIn I met for a different reason. But if you don't keep engaged with them, they just end up being a name on a list. And so I put together an email. It was kind of a jokey email about a few things about me that you wouldn't know that aren't on my LinkedIn profile. And it was kind of an icebreaker so that people say, oh, you're a real person, not just a photograph and a profile. And without disclosing how many messages I sent, I had 220 replies.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, of those 220, well, actually, 10 people disconnected with me straight off the bat. 3 people said unsubscribe, get lost, because I sent it in the evening and it's near year end. But I had 220 positive replies. Of that, I mean, including yourself, I've had some great networking conversations. Again, I'm not looking to pitch anything to my network. I just want to get to know them better. I've referred, I'd say, about 15 of my connections. I've referred them prospects, and one actually referred me a prospect, and I've now got like 150, 200K deal in my pipeline because of it.
$152,000 deal? Did I hear that correctly?
150K, 200K.
Wow. So basically you spent half an hour crafting a message, which you would have crafting an email, like a cold email to a bunch of prospects anyway. but you sent this message along to your entire network on LinkedIn, and you were able to get 220 replies back. And out of that, you were able to get $150,000 to $200,000 deal in your pipeline. That's phenomenal, John. So basically, social is definitely working for you, and your message to salespeople is just give it a try.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, John, I really want to thank you for your time. I do appreciate you coming on board to the Social Success Factor. Let's follow up in a couple of months, maybe 6 months from now, and we'll have another chat for our audience as well.
All right, Mark, love that.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.